Blacked up streets repeat the patterns we've all seen before. It's getting harder to ignore. This won't be the last time I'll be here. I want to drive far away with you. I know that it's nothing new, but we feel it every time. For all my life, I felt like my hands were tied. I'm dying to feel alive, if only for tonight. Each time we pass the district line and make our way along the interstate, I feel the pressure start to fade. The sun goes down, we hear the sound of Springsteen singing, we were born to run. But baby, we're still young. This won't be the last time I'll be here. I know that I can't outrun the fear. I want to drive far away with you. I know that it's nothing new, but we feel it every time. For all my life, I felt like my hands were tied. I'm dying to feel alive, if only for tonight. But I want to drive far away with you. I know that it's nothing new, but we feel it every time. All my life, I felt like my hands were tied. I'm dying to feel alive, if only for tonight. This won't be the last time I'll be here. No, this won't be the last time I'll be here. I want to drive far away with you. I know that it's nothing new, but we feel it every time. For all my life, I felt like my hands were tied. I'm dying to feel alive, if only for tonight. If only for tonight. If only for tonight. If only for tonight.
You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to yet again another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Coming to you live here on Tuesday night, 9 p.m. every Tuesday night. YouTube, Facebook. Bookmark the page. That's right. Like, share, subscribe, notify everybody you know. We love entertaining you all whenever we can. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And it's chaotic every week with Mr. Cheatham.
That's true.
You never know what he's going to do.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
We don't. And that's what keeps it exciting after all these years.
I don't know until I do it.
I just love that man over there. That's right. Sitting in the third chair.
Pushing a button.
You're just, no,
It
remember.
I didn't wait long enough.
You didn't. You got to wait till I'm done
Oh,
fading out the
you just
music.
gave it
Now
away.
you can do it.
Well, I didn't hear the music anymore, so I hit it. But
you
I just,
didn't?
It was just very.
Very faint.
It was like right at the
There it is.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday, you better be entertained.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday. We try hard.
Oh.
That's right. Level up.
Level
Maybe when we get a new
All
subscriber,
I
that's
can
what we
think
should
is
do.
I didn't do that on purpose, but I hear try hard. It's the grow, so I was just like,
Grow.
okay, that was
That's
perfectly timed.
Exactly what we want to do here
It's,
every single
you
week.
know.
That's right. Follow us. Like, share, subscribe. I already said it, but
You did.
can't say it enough. Hit that
What
bell
are we?
icon.
What are we saying?
You left
enough?
out Twitch. We're getting big
Twitch?
on Twitch.
We are?
Yeah, people are watching us.
Is he
on
tuning
Twitch.
in every week now?
different
I mean,
people.
I haven't
Hey.
seen any comments yet, but if you're watching on Twitch, leave us a comment.
Leave us a comment. Drop it.
Well,
We'll name drop you.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
absolutely.
Even if you say the F-bomb.
Yep.
Don't care.
We don't care if you cuss at us.
We don't. Cuss at us all you want.
call us
That's right.
We
stupid,
don't
call us
care.
names. We enjoy it. I
That's
get a kick
right.
out of it.
I actually don't mind at all.
No.
You know
I
what?
kind of enjoy the mean comments more than the nice comments because they're
I
more
mean,
entertaining.
I can kick back and laugh at those later, and I'd be like, "Man, that's what they think of me. This is
man.
great."
It's like these guys are a-holes. I love it.
But no, it is funny because in this world of all the mean tweets and everything, oh
Yeah.
gosh, just get your feelings hurt. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know?
Actually,
we
I
hurt
read-
people's feelings. You can hurt
Oh,
ours.
actually, I think I did send it to you all yesterday. I just
can't.
reminded me but I read a really good article last night from Kevin Hart where he was talking about cancel culture, and I was like,
Oh, yeah?
it was really well. I mean, he was just talking about how like basically dumb it is.
Yeah.
And, he was talking about obviously his experience with being
With the
canceled from the Oscars
Yeah.
host, and he said, the whole point is I don't know any person alive who doesn't make mistakes. That's how you learn. It's like, he's like, when my kids make mistakes, I don't like get mad at them. Like I teach them. It's
Yep.
like that's how you learn. And he's
well,
like,
wasn't it? It was Charles Barkley recently too on late night.
no, there's a few that are
They're
finally
all
kind of
like,
they're
I'm
getting
tired of
fed
this
up.
cancel
Yes.
culture.
Yes.
It's like you can't say anything without watching.
Not
He
everybody
said, he was
in the
like,
celebrity culture is brainwashed. There's some that are
Right.
finally saying, "Hey, we're tired of
gotta
this.
wake
This is
up."
dumb." So,
well, I mean,
yeah.
it's like he's like, I can't even imagine being on a radio show or a podcast where it's like you got to watch everything you say.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Well,
who
that's-
knows what you'll.
That's
step
what I
in.
liked what Kevin Hart was saying because he was like, used to like take for example, someone goes to jail. You serve your time, you come out of jail, then someone says, "Well, we're not going to hire you because you were in jail."
It's like I just served my time.
yes, that was Kevin Hart's point. It's like that was my punishment. I did something wrong. I had a punishment. Then it should be moved on. He said now it's like you do a crime. And there is no punishment. You come back. It's just you do a crime, and now your life's over forever.
and that's not the way it should
yeah,
be.
yeah.
I
And I was
mean,
like, I respect that.
Except for Chrissy Teigen.
She's
Yeah.
trying.
It's not
She's
been long enough. She still needs to be
She
in
hasn't
Twitter
had-
and Facebook
She
jail.
hasn't really had much punishment.
She's literally
I mean,
been off
what's
of
funny-
social for a month.
It's
Yeah.
funny how they're all behind it until they get canceled.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh no,
Oh,
this is
please
terrible.
forgive
Yeah,
me. I've
absolutely.
learned my lesson.
She said, I made mistakes. I was 26 years old, which is old enough to know better, but still I was young and made mistakes.
I made a mistake. I told a minor to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty big
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
Anyways,
When
not to
we-
get off
yeah,
on a
We
tangent.
were shooting potato guns when we were 26. I mean, we weren't telling people to kill themselves.
No, we weren't
True.
endangering anybody
That's
but a
right.
couple of cows.
We were just destroying property.
Cows,
There's
Yeah.
a difference.
Glass. No glass was safe.
Well, would you rather take your frustration out on glass windows or on a minor?
A cow.
There you go. There you go.
But then you have the whole animal abuse problem.
I'm just
so-
saying, when you think about it in that regard,
Sometimes protecting the animals is more important than protecting innocent people.
That's true.
true.
Yeah.
That is true. That's the world we live in today.
Mm.
And we've got so much to cover on this week's episode.
Yeah, we should move.
Yeah, we were kind of getting a
on.
little political there.
Always willing
Move
to
into
save
the
us
movies.
with the dad joke. I love it.
Oh, I got good ones.
Absolutely love it. We do have some good wokeness going on in this episode.
Oh,
We're going to
man,
talk
I
about
don't
it.
wanna.
I know, but can we really? It was funny.
It's
I
unavoidable.
sent a text to Sean today, and I said, "Well, it was to the group. It was you. You were included too, Keith."
I didn't see them all. I had a busy day today.
Yeah.
But
you
I
did.
just said, I was like, I hate to say it. We were going to talk about box office numbers and, hey, everything's hunky-dory. Quiet Place 2 cracked $100 million.
It's doing
First film in the pandemic era.
Mhm.
So it's like, hey, on
doing
the up
really
and up.
good.
But I was like, I think we're going to change our headline. Tom Hanks was written about from an NPR article.
I did see the. At least I know what we're talking about because I
Well,
did see the article.
It's just funny because I mentioned, I was like, I hate to be political. And Sean just goes, everything's political. these
Everything
days.
nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, you can't help yourself.
Right.
But I also want to give a shout out to a viewer. They may be viewing, they may not be. They asked if we were viewing Spirit Untamed,
reviewing. Yeah.
reviewing it, and I hate
Not
to say
not right now.
we're not this week.
Oh well, there's some untamed spirits,
Yeah,
but
true.
different probably.
Yeah.
Not an
Yeah.
animated feature, Untamed Spirit.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So not this week. I told her to tune in and watch and see, and I gave her a winky emoji,
Uh oh.
and
Uh-oh.
just so she would tune in.
Is
But
this going to be our next review?
who knows?
Yeah.
I'm not ready to decide yet.
Yeah.
Bethany Warner, you're the one that asked. Blow up our comment feed. If you get 10 likes on our page,
I mean, we
we'll
have to
review it.
review something, but I need a little bit more convincing that it needs to be Spirit Untamed.
Well, it's
How about
only
you, Sean?
I don't even know what that is.
You know the cartoon, like they made
You
a
talking about
Netflix.
Spirit.
Yes, the
show?
horse. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's a
Sawyer
movie.
watches that.
Yeah, there's a movie now, Spirit Untamed, which is based off the show. It's like basically what I've read. What I've read is
Sean
that
had it
what I've read
exasperated.
is the movie is basically a retelling of like the first season of the show, kind of something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not an
But-
actual
but
follow up to the show.
Here's
it's
the
just
thing:
the show is
trailer,
reiteration. Bad.
the trailer was not that bad. The trailer was not bad, and it is from the same creators.
No, it's you say that, but I looked it up. It's not the same people that made How to Train Your Dragon.
It's not.
It's just DreamWorks and one of the producers from How to Train Your Dragon.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? You throw that in there, and you got a good tagline for,
Yeah.
"Hey, come watch this
Yeah.
film."
Yeah.
Well, because
I was willing to give it a chance because of that.
yeah, because I looked it up. What happened was DreamWorks wanted to do it cheap, so they have
Like everything.
They have
Yeah.
subsidiary like animation companies. I mean, Disney does too.
Yeah.
So one of their animation companies that did the Christmas special for How to Train Your Dragon.
No.
They made this movie.
Oh, nice.
Gosh.
Because I was looking, because I was like, because I forget the guy's name. He wrote and directed all three of the How to Train Your Dragon movies, and he has nothing to do with it. I was like,
Bethany-
if he was involved, I would be
Yeah.
100% down.
Bethany,
See
I
that?
hate to tell you, chances are it's not looking
Gonna be
good.
good. You
It's
can't-
not looking good
You
right
can't
now.
trust that stuff because
It's like from the technically
there was-
DreamWorks made How to Train Your Dragon,
Right.
so technically it is from the same people
right
as
There
How
was-
to
I
Train
can't
Your Dragon.
remember what the movie was, but there was
I know
one
they're
that
sneaky
was
with that.
advertised and it said from the producers of Training Day, and I'm thinking, oh man, that must
Oh,
be
hell
a
yeah.
freaking awesome movie
Yeah,
because that's
producers
one of the
can
best movies
mean
I've ever
anything.
seen. And then you watch the movie and it's terrible, and I'm like, this is not.
Isn't it? Well, and isn't it crazy that we get sucked in by that?
Dean
Because there are
DeBoy.
movies
We
that
do.
I have seen from producers of, and I'm like, Psh, that's gonna be terrible.
Yeah.
there ain't
Right.
no way. And it literally is the same thing. It's some third
Yeah.
party, down the
Well, I
line
mean,
producer.
Like
Yeah.
one
But
of the
it never
producers,
is good.
like one of the actual producers for How to Train Your Dragon did produce this, but that doesn't mean anything to me. It's like if you had said, like, I looked him up. Dean DeBloy is the name of the director and writer of the all three films. I'm like, if you had said from Dean DeBloy, I would have been like, yes, let's go
well,
there.
let's think
but-
about it in terms of Transformers: The Last Night. Michael Bay didn't direct the last one; he
No.
produced it.
Yeah.
But guess
Right.
what? It still sucked.
It sucked.
And even with Michael Bay, I mean, I'll at
It
least give
sucked
Michael
worse-
Bay
It
credit.
sucked worse than Michael Bay's Transformers. movies.
Exactly.
That's actually
Yeah.
And
true.
that's saying something.
That's
Yeah.
sad.
That's
yeah.
really bad.
Last night was bad.
It was awful.
Last night was bad.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch, last night was bad.
That's what she said, definitely.
I was telling
yeah.
Sean about Strange Magic, and Strange Magic's not as bad as Last Night. So there's that.
Oh, wow.
I did say it's worse. It's worse than Howard the Duck, though.
Which is saying something too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Howard the
not
Duck's
in
bad.
in a good way though, because Howard the Duck is bad in a good way.
Exactly.
It's like
Strange Magic
cult
is just
classic.
bad.
Bad. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
let's
that's
just say
not worth it.
Yeah, it's just bad. I was
Toxic
like,
Avengers bad, kind of.
now see, but Toxic Avengers is
That's
still fun to
good
watch.
because
It's
it's
so bad,
right.
it's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, Howard the Duck is so bad. That
Yes,
it's good
yes.
to watch.
Agreed.
Strange Magic's just
Yeah.
bad.
Just bad.
It's but there's a thing, like, I didn't watch the whole movie. I finally did give up because it's like over 2 hours. I was like, this is
Oh,
way too long.
gosh.
Yeah. But I got halfway through it because I couldn't stop because it was like a train. Like, it was bad, but it was like a train wreck bad. Like, I'm
well,
like,
and
I
the only
can't
reason you
stop
were intrigued
watching
by this was because it was.
I wanted to see how much worse it was going to keep getting, and then
well,
finally,
because it in a tie with George Lucas, it was
well,
his
it
last.
was his
Yeah, it's
last.
his
Like,
last.
he made this animated kids film. Is the last thing he did before selling Lucasfilm to Disney. And it's a musical with like actual like not written songs, but songs from actual known artists, kind of like Moulin Rouge. But I was telling Sean, like, there's different genres and eras, and I'm like, I don't know who this movie's for because the kids aren't going to know most of these songs, but adults aren't going to like the movie enough to care about the music that's in it. So I don't know.
I don't know. Well, Bethany, I can't say it's looking good to watch Spirit Untamed. All I know is, hey, happy anniversary to you and Michael. And I will say, here's the thing. She did, when she asked me, she just sent me this text a little while ago, and she said, if you do review it, I have opinions. So I'm kind of wanting to just say, hey, you know what?
I want to know what her opinions
yeah,
are.
just, you know what? You do a review.
You review it.
You do an informal review
her
for
opinions
us. We'll read it
might
on the
convince
show.
me to see it.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. We'll definitely mention what you rated.
I
and
don't
what you
trust
think of
most of DreamWorks anyways. Like, How to Train Your Dragon was just a fluke. Like,
Yeah.
that's like the best thing they've done.
Yeah.
it. Well,
And those movies like gradually got better. I feel like.
Yes.
Oh, no
Those
doubt.
were
Yes.
very good movies.
Yeah.
but hey, you know, send us in your review, your thoughts. Listen, Bethany, we'll take your word for it. Okay, we don't have to watch the movie. That's why we have viewers like you.
We could. I mean, we have to go to theaters to see it. It's not streaming anywhere, so.
Alrighty, guys, I think that's gonna do it for our intro. There,
Yeah.
we're ready to get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah,
we
we're
didn't
12
make
minutes
the 10
in.
minutes.
We're a
Oh,
little,
we went way over.
a little over.
Yeah, we were a little
My
excited.
fault. Talking about Strange Magic.
Not worth it.
Mm-mm.
No, we
Okay.
did a review before the review.
Yeah. Well,
Don't
let's see if this
don't
review,
watch
let's
Strange
see if this
Magic.
one's worth it.
Here is our review of The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It.
When it comes to paranormal investigation, few names are as renowned as Ed and Lorraine Warren. Whether you buy into their claims or believe in ghosts, hauntings, demonic entities, and possessions, the stories from the Warrens will at least give you pause. And even the largest skeptic has experienced a chill or two touring the Warren Supernatural Museum. With an entire life's history of supernatural investigations to choose from, it's not surprising that the Warrens became the topic of a major Hollywood horror franchise, including a plethora of spin-offs creating what is now known as the Conjuring universe, with the third main installment having recently released to theaters and HBO Max. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, once again starring Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren, takes place several years after the second Conjuring film. Now set in 1981, the film tells the story of Arnie Johnson, played by Rory O'Connor, who was tried for murder of his landlord in the first ever documented court case in America, where the defense plead innocence due to demonic possession. After an exorcism performed on 11-year-old David Glatzel, younger brother of Arnie's girlfriend, forced the demon to retreat from David into Arnie, Arnie later kills his landlord and is put on trial. The Warrens, historically and in the movie, were large proponents for Arnie's innocence due to possession, and the film's depiction of their investigation sends them on another horror-filled adventure. While the story was written by James Wan, who also still produced, the directorial reins were taken over by Michael Chavez, who previously helmed The Curse of La Llorona, one of the more critically panned additions to the Conjuring franchise. Chavez doesn't redeem himself much here either, as The Devil Made Me Do It is the weakest of the three mainline Conjuring films. Lacking the subtle suspense and tension present in the first two Conjuring movies, and more straightforward in its presentation, this is possibly the least scariest film in the entire Conjuring universe. While the story is fascinating, the movie focuses little on the actual court proceedings, which makes sense as the judge in real life never allowed the possession defense to be presented in court. The movie, as with the rest of the series, tweaks the facts to create a horror film, And while this is expected, this film suffers more than its predecessors from straying far from the actual history of the case. With the possession itself used to get Arnie to the courtroom, everything that follows takes the Conjuring franchise away from hauntings and demonic entities and dives more into the mythos involving witchcraft, which can effectively be intertwined with Satanism and the demonic to horrifying effect, but is not done so here. Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson give solid performances and are right at home in the roles of Ed and Lorraine, and while their loving relationship has always been the powerhouse behind the Conjuring films that keeps you rooting for their characters to win, it's not enough to scavenge all of The Devil Made Me Do its flaws. Simply put, the film squanders its most interesting premise to take the franchise in a different direction that doesn't pay off, and is the dullest of the three Conjuring films with the least amount of scares. Yes, it's still better than the majority of the series' lackluster spin-offs, but it fails to capture what made Conjuring 1 and 2 so good. I give The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Ooh. From the great country artist Shania Twain. That don't impress me much.
Oh.
Sorry, I just threw that out there.
I was wondering. I was like,
I don't know,
did
but
a country artist make this movie? 'Cause
awesome.
I would believe it.
it's something Chavez.
I
I
mean,
don't
it's
remember.
as
I don't remember
it's
the director's
as boring
name.
and depressing as some country music. So
Oh, wow, that's
It was,
true. You know, it definitely ain't 3 chords in the truth. I'll tell you.
I
that.
didn't hate the movie. I just didn't like it a lot.
Well, as your review points out, and I would agree.
I felt it's the weakest of the 3 main Conjuring. It's not the worst in the Conjuring verse because some of the spin-offs are just absolutely terrible.
Conjureverse.
Yeah, but as far as like Conjuring 1, 2, and 3, it's definitely the weakest. And I think part of that, I even before coming in here told Sean that I didn't know until like kind of right before watching the movie that James Wan didn't direct it himself. He was already in production for Aquaman 2. So I think it's Michael Chavez is who directed this. And he was actually the director of The Curse of La Llorona, which is probably the worst film in the Conjuring universe.
I haven't seen that one.
So it's kind of funny that it's like, oh, we're going to give our main movies to the guy that made the worst movie. I don't really understand the Warner Brothers thought process with that one. But, yeah, this definitely isn't as bad as some of the spinoffs. But it was definitely a lot more boring than the first 2 Conjurings, and it was not scary to me. I liked some of the ideas in there, but I just felt it all kind of felt more flat. Like there wasn't the suspense that Juan really builds really well and that tension. Like I never felt any tension in this movie. Like I was afraid that any of these people were actually in danger of dying or being possessed by something demonic.
Well, especially Ed and Lorraine, because I think as you pointed out after we talked about it after you recorded the review, it's like, well, we know that there's no risk of them dying.
Well, yeah,
because of when they actually.
We
die
already
in
know
real life.
in real life that they live well into the 2000s. So it's like the cliff scene. It's like one, they show almost that entire scene in the trailer.
Yeah.
So I wasn't scared. And
Yeah.
then 2, watching it, it's like, well, she's not going to die here. She doesn't die till 2019.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, it's like even him in the hospital with after having the heart
yeah,
issue,
the heart
it's just
attack,
like,
yeah.
well, I mean, he's gonna walk away. Like,
Yeah.
we know that.
Well, and that was kind of one of those moments where they were. I for one gave it 2 out of 4 stars, but that was one of those moments where they're trying to force the bond between them, and
which
build
was
that
well done
extra element.
in the first 2 movies. I felt like their relationship is why I liked the first 2, is because you have like these really loving couple who have like this strong faith fighting like these demonic presence, and it's just an interesting story concept whether you believe it's true or not. And in this one, like they try to kind of continue that, but like you said, you don't really buy like the bond's there. Like I mean, as far as Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga's acting, like this is their 3rd go around. I didn't disbelieve their acting. I felt like okay, they continued on with what they did the first 2.
It was
but
fun.
I just felt the writing and direction just wasn't as, it was kind of like just cliched, like, oh,
That's-
they love
yeah.
each other. And it's like, yeah, we already know that. Thank you.
Well, and even just the story beats itself were cliche. I
Yeah.
just felt like the progression of how you can tell right from the very beginning what they're aiming for and what piece is going to follow to the next part. And it just, there was nothing that made it unique. There was nothing, again, when you're going to something like this and you're looking for the scare factor, it's not there.
Yeah.
There's some suspenseful moments, more so the eerie factor that I think Juan always hit the nail on the head with the other 2 films. But like there's a scene where Ed and Lorraine go to visit this old Catholic priest who's retired, and the first time you meet him, it feels eerie and unsettling, and I didn't mind that. But then, as far as later on when there's a reveal, it just kind of fizzles, and there's nothing that's too, again, you know who the main henchman is by this point.
Yeah.
You know who they're really after. There's nothing real scary other than, jump scares. And even that, it's like, okay, I know what's coming. I mean, frankly, and Sean, I think me and you agree on this, it was kind of just boring.
Yeah, and
most of the film.
I only saw an hour and 5 minutes of it. I had internet issues. I couldn't stream it. By the time I got things worked out in the new house, still trying to get internet crap working, and by the time I got HBO Max up and running, it was pretty late. So I tried to sit up and watch it, but I just after an hour and 5, I was like, I gotta
it's
go
not
to
worth
bed.
it anymore.
I mean, I actually did fall asleep on the couch, and I woke up and like, I don't know, it's kind of gross, but like I stood up and had swamp butt real bad. So I was like, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom and then go to bed.
Yeah.
And it was like I was sitting on a sweaty couch and everything. It was like a leather couch. It was nasty. But
I just one thing for me, and I think
that's really, I could give that.
That was your
I can give
description
that
of the
2 out of
movie.
4 stars.
that was the highlight of yeah.
You know, the first few minutes, like 5-10 minutes of the movie, were kind of all the movie. Like that summed it up. I did like there's one scene that I got to see that I actually enjoyed, and that was when they were meeting with the judge or the lawyer, and they were telling her like, come and stay a night at our house, and we'll see how if you believe in the morning or whatever. And then it shows her in the courtroom, just like completely in a daze.
Yes,
because she knows.
I like that.
But they said like, we use the Bible and we use a belief in God as in the courtroom. Every time somebody swears in on a Bible,
you acknowledge
it's
the
about time
existence
we
of God.
start acknowledging the existence of the devil.
And I thought that was that was a good line.
A very good line.
To me, that was the highlight of the movie.
Right.
Was that line and that scene. I was like, okay, that was really well done. It was the first time in the movie I really felt any form of like actual faith from the Warrens.
Yeah.
At least in this movie. So I was like, I mean, they mentioned plenty of times, like God, the devil, and all these things. But it's like, but you could say those things. That don't mean you have actual. It's like you could tell. I told Brandon yesterday, you can always tell when someone makes a movie about faith that doesn't actually understand faith. Because they throw in all kinds of like cliches and trigger
references,
and it's like this is not how that actually works.
It is funny because
Soul Surfer.
It's
like you can tell that was made by
any mainstream Christian film, honestly.
Right. Well,
even God's Not Dead.
Definitely. God's Not Dead.
But I think that's also, and again going between like this director and James Wan, is the attention to detail that I feel Wan has that this director doesn't, even in smaller things. Because one thing and I didn't pay attention to see if this director did it in this movie. I'm sure he probably did because it's a more known detail now. But his tie, Ed Warren's tie and her skirt always match in like all the scenes they're in the first 2 movies. And I don't know if that's the case in this movie. I would think because that's a more known, but it's those types of attention to details that it's like, okay, Juan can create this relationship because you see like they're loving in the fact that like everywhere they go, like they have like this like matching tie and skirt, and it's like he doesn't have to say they're in love. You can just kind of see by the way they dress that they're in love.
It's like an unknown, unspoken attention to detail.
And
that builds on the world.
I feel like he does that with the scares too. Is he'll put these little things that attract your attention while doing something else in the background that ends up like frightening you.
Well, and that's the thing. This movie had potential. I mean, the set pieces, the waterbed, I thought definitely had potential.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the way it was presented or what ended up ultimately coming in the scene.
It was scarier in the trailer.
Yeah, and honestly, again, suspense is about building the anticipation. The one scene that actually it didn't get me, but I thought was well done, was there's a scene early on when Arnie, the sister's boyfriend, is looking through the hole in the wall, and you're like, okay, something's gonna jump out, and it doesn't. Yeah. He turns around and then boom, and I thought that was good. Yeah, I actually that
misdirection.
Yeah, and he knew like, but again, that's careful planning. That's I'm gonna do this intentionally, and yet the rest of it was much more on the cliche side of things. The other problem I had with this film was, and it was funny because I told this to Keith right after the review, but I didn't know any of the backstory. I was like, I kind of was more interested in the way the trailer built it was the court case. They bill it as, this is the first time demonic possession in the U.S. was ever on trial, and it proved that demonic possession was legitimate. funny thing is no, the judge throws it out in
Yeah.
real life.
In real life, yeah.
In the very beginning.
Not in the
so
movie, but-
the funny thing is the scene that I thought was comical too for, they convinced her,
Right.
they convinced the
happened.
lawyer. But, even if that did happen, when she stands up and says, this is what I'm using
Pleading
to
innocence by demonic possession.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the funny thing is it's like the scene ends right after that, and it's like, well, that's where it ended in real life.
Yeah.
And that's where the truth of the story ends
Yeah.
in real
Yeah.
life.
Everything from there is made up in the movie.
And I'm like, I would have, at least in the God's Not Dead universe, when I'm like, as terrible as the
Yeah.
Christian revelations are,
Yeah.
at least the scenes between, again, the student and the professor
Kevin
back and
Sorbo.
forth. Well, Kevin Sorbo's
Kevin
just,
Sorbo.
he's fantastic.
Oh, yeah,
I
he
mean,
is.
Hercules is,
Heck yeah.
but it's like, at least their back and forth in the classroom was interesting. It was
Yes.
because when you have a psychological sparring and you're allowing me to think on my feet, or at least allowing me the ability to have the cleverness of that scene, then I'm sold. I'm in. And that's what I appreciate good filmmakers. That's why we love, I think, Nolan on this show when we talk about him.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't dumb down his audience. He makes you he brings the audience up to his level of thinking, and you have to comprehend it. And this movie had that potential, and it sold itself on that, and it fell completely flat because it didn't depend on that. It went for the ridiculous supernatural element that didn't pay off.
Well, I'm not going to watch the second half.
I wouldn't.
It's not really worth it.
It's about as good as that swamp butt you had.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
I think that'd be it.
That'd be it.
I don't really think there's much else to say.
2.5 out of 4 stars for
I
The
think
Conjuring.
there's plenty of people who will enjoy it. If you like especially if you like all of the Conjuring universe movies, then you will like it because it's definitely not the worst. But other than that,
Yeah, I mean, if you're James
Yeah.
Cameron or Zack Snyder,
Yeah.
you'll love it.
Mm-hmm.
So, alrighty, guys, that's gonna do it for our review talk on this episode. Now we're ready to get into, I guess, is it headline time?
yeah, it's time to talk
Already?
about how white Tom Hanks is.
Let's get into it. Pass it off to you, Keith.
I know, but
Yeah.
it has to end at
It's
some
gotta-
point.
Improv
I don't
never
start,
ends.
I don't start that way.
Sean, the
ready for the
day
end.
the day you jump in, we're gonna let you just solo it.
No.
you just take
That's
it.
why you won't.
Sean's gonna
Guess
jump
we did-
in,
Did you
and
bring
then
a bone in here? Because the dog will not leave me alone.
No.
Can you give her a bone?
she had one.
I
Where
bet
is it?
She's hidden it
She's,
somewhere.
It's
she
out in the
does. She
hallway.
goes and hides it in the pillows. I
Oh.
don't know why. And then she comes to me. It's exactly
gone.
where it's at.
It's like you need a knick-knack paddywhack.
She probably smells your
Give her dog a
swamp butt.
bone.
She wants
Smells
that
what?
swamp butt.
Yeah.
She wants some swamp.
Probably smells cigar.
Hey, that's a great smell.
Mm.
Alrighty, just like
Mm.
Tom Hanks. Let's talk about
He's
it.
a great smell.
Yeah.
He's
I
got
bet
a
Tom
great
Hanks
smell.
smells good.
I bet he does.
You think he smells like shrimp?
Yeah,
Bubba
maybe.
Gump.
Yeah.
Bubba Gump shrimp. Ooh, beautiful cough there on camera.
Nice.
Sorry. I just cut right to you when you.
Nice. In the
I had a
elbow.
tickle in my throat.
It's hard
Yeah.
sometimes to control.
I didn't
all
have
the
a mask. I
buttons.
had to do the, you know.
Thank you for not spreading COVID.
Yeah.
The dad.
Hey, I'm vaccinated now.
That,
It's
Well,
okay.
I'm clean.
Yeah.
I'm vaccinated as well. There's
Yeah, that
only-
means we could never get sick ever
Hey,
again.
In this room, that means herd immunity exists.
This house is not clear.
Now that's a good movie.
That is a good movie.
Oh,
There's a
guys.
good paranormal movie
Yeah.
that's actually scary and good.
And it's not even like, because I think it's like PG-13. It's really
Yes.
not even, but it's still
I
good.
think it's PG.
Scared the crap out
Really?
of me.
I think so.
It may have it might predate the
I think it's
13
PG.
rating.
That's Spielberg, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Poltergeist.
he produced. Toby Hooper directed the
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
guy that made Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
So
Here's the funny.
either way, he's had great minds on it.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, you say Hooper, and I just think of Jaws,
Jaws.
immediately. Just 'cause of
Mr.
Hooper.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey! Oh my gosh!
Perfect.
Came
The
in
one
handy.
time
That's
it came in
the
handy.
right button. The right button.
Holy crap! We don't even plan that.
Nope.
Yeah.
But some nights we just gel.
I'm
You know?
still waiting for Anakin on there.
Yeah.
It's a one day, and it will be apt for when it's on there. You can push it, and it will make sense.
It's working.
I think your impression of it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And we just
It's
stick
good
with
enough.
that. Alrighty, we're gonna do something we rarely do. We're gonna actually read a full article.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, believe it or not, we can actually read
We
on
can-
this show.
I read.
Well, we all read, but we never read aloud our articles. We always
I'm pretty
reference
sure
them and we
every
leave them
week-
in the description below.
Every week I read something aloud.
But
It's called The Review.
I'm demonically possessed.
I just
Oh,
don't do
gosh.
it
yeah,
live.
watching that hour opened a doorway.
it opened up something.
Opened a doorway to
out of
the
your
devil to
both
get in
ends.
there.
So there was an opinion piece on NPR
Yeah,
that wrote about Mr. Tom Hanks. I'm going to read it here, okay?
please
We're
do.
just going to read the whole article and we'll discuss as we go along or after.
How long
the
is this
entire
article?
is
Okay, it's
read.
not too long.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, because we know Brendan doesn't read very much.
Well, and,
Neither
and,
do
and
I.
honestly, when
I was
if
gonna
I
say.
read live, it's going to be pretty bad.
It's gonna be 20 minutes before we get there.
All right, so let's go right into it.
Yeah.
First, I must note how much I love Tom Hanks as a performer, Hollywood citizen, and all-around stand-up guy. Of course, he's a consummate actor with 2 Oscars and starring roles in landmark films such as Philadelphia and Forrest Gump. He's been an outspoken advocate for gay rights and environmentalism. He even helped us get through the pandemic, setting a graceful, confident example when he and his wife, Rita Wilson, were among the first celebrities publicly revealed to have COVID-19. So when I saw he recently had written a guest essay in the New York Times calling for more widespread teaching about the Tulsa race massacre, when white mobs in Oklahoma burned a prosperous black neighborhood to the ground in 1921, killing between 100 and 300 people, I was sincerely heartened. Now, I thought, we'll see him examine how his work, so often focused on the achievements of virtuous white male Americans, may have made it tougher for tales about atrocities such as Tulsa to find similar space. But he didn't fully go there. Here's what he did say. History was mostly written by white people about white people like me, while the history of black people, including the horrors of Tulsa, was too often left out. Until relatively recently, the entertainment industry, which helps shape what is history and what is forgotten, did the same. That includes projects of mine. He goes on to say he learned of Tulsa from an article in the New York Times last year. And another line later in the piece, he remarks, "Today, I think historically based fiction entertainment must portray the burden of racism in our nation for the sake of the art form's claims to verisimilitude." Oh, I think I got that one.
Verisimilitude.
And authenticity. These are wise words. And it's wonderful that Hanks stepped forward to advocate for teaching about race-based massacre, indirectly pushing back against all the hyperventilating about critical race theory that's too often more about silencing such lessons on America's darkest chapters. But it is not enough.
You're killing me, Smalls.
After many years of speaking out about race and media in America, I know the toughest thing for some white Americans, especially those who consider themselves advocates against racism, is to admit how they were personally and specifically connected to the elevation of white culture over the other cultures. But in Hank's case, he is no average American, or average Hollywood star for that matter. Over the years, he has starred in a lot of big movies about historical events, including Saving Private Ryan, Greyhound, Forrest Gump, Apollo 13, Bridge of Spies, and News of the World. He has served as a producer or executive producer or even more films and TV shows based on American history, including Band of Brothers, The Pacific, John Adams, and From the Earth to the Moon. He was an executive producer on documentaries such as The Assassination of President Kennedy and The 60s on CNN. In other words, he is a baby boomer star who has built a sizable part of his career on stories about American white men doing the right thing. He even played a former Confederate soldier in one of his latest films, News of the World, standing up for a blonde white girl who had been kidnapped and raised by a Native American tribe. He's not alone. Superstar director Steven Spielberg has similar pedigree, notwithstanding occasional projects such as The Color Purple and Amistad, and fellow director Ron Howard. These stories of white Americans smashing the Nazi war machine or riding rockets into space are important, but they often leave out how black soldiers returned home from fighting in World War II to find they weren't allowed to use the GI Bill to secure home loans in certain neighborhoods and were cheated out of claiming benefits at all. They don't describe how black people were excluded from participating in space missions as astronauts early in America's space program. As the book film Book and film Hidden Figures notes even brilliant black and female mathematicians faced discrimination in the space program during the 1950s and the 60s. If given better opportunities, perhaps they could have helped us get to the moon sooner, but putting our best minds on the problem, regardless of race. In some ways, Hollywood is tripped up by its own storytelling habits, often in modern films and TV shows. Open and ugly expressions of racism are used to telegraph to the audience that a character is a terrible person. Think of the moment when a mobster in The Godfather notes he wants to focus selling hard drugs to black people, or the coloreds, because they're animals anyway, so let them lose their souls. Or our anti-hero, Marlon Brando's Don Corleone, had resisted selling drugs at all, but accepts this compromise. Once that dynamic is established, it's tough to show a character the audience is supposed to love displayed that the type of racism that was common in their time, which means the product of that racism, from lynchings to redlining, is often disappeared too. For those of us who speak often on these issues, one of the toughest things to do is to go to a white person who is trying hard to be an ally and tell them they need to do more. And I'm sure there are plenty of Hanks fans out there of every stripe who will say I am expecting too much, being ungrateful toward a big star who said more than he had to. And I understand. I'm not saying Hanks, Howard, or Spielberg are racist. I'm not even saying that Hanks should have made or supported a film specifically about the Tulsa Race Massacre long before now. Though I am astonished that a guy who has been making film and TV projects rooted in American history for at least 25 years didn't find out about Tulsa until 2020. But over the summer, in the wake of George Floyd's murder by a white police officer, I spent a lot of time investigating the difference between being non-racist and being anti-racist. Anti-racism implies action, looking around your universe and taking specific steps to dismantle systematic racism. So I am saying it is time for folks like Hanks to be anti-racist. If he really wants to make a difference, Hanks and the other stars need to talk specifically about how their work has contributed to these problems and how they will change. They need to make specific commitments to changing the conversation in story subjects, casting, and execution. This is truly hard work of building change. Rather than talk about what historically based fiction entertainment must do, why not talk about what Tom Hanks, longtime scripted and documentary executive producer, will do? As a star who can get a movie made just by agreeing to appear in it, what will Tom Hanks movie star actually do? People often say columns such as the one by Hanks are published to start a conversation. Well, here's my suggestion. Let's make part of that conversation how baby boomer filmmakers made fortunes amplifying ideas of white exceptionalism and heroism, and how their responsibility now lies with helping dismantle and broaden the ideas that helped cement in the American mind. So, guys, let's talk about that. What are your opinions or thoughts?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
I feel like the whole time I was reading that article, you were planning on that one.
Yeah.
No, the Killing Me Smalls was the one I was planning on. Then you got done, and I was like,
Wow.
oh, this one works too.
Okay. So after having that article read, I didn't want it to be taken out of context.
Yeah, no.
So I wanted it to be read in its full length so that we're not missing any kind of
He's-
nuances.
I get it. He's not racist, but he's not anti-racist.
There it
either.
is.
And that's
Yeah.
that's a problem because Lord forbid that an entertainer just entertain.
Well, it's funny because exactly. But then again, now granted, Hanks is the one that wrote a New
He
York
did
Times
start it.
piece.
He did
Yes.
start it.
And-
He got into the he fell into that trap.
Well, it's not, well, I was gonna say like this isn't.
Yeah.
This is what Hollywood has been about for the last few years.
Absolutely.
Last decade, two
and I'm
decades,
not-
however long.
And I'm not
Hollywood's existed.
surprised. I mean, Tom Hanks has been a proponent for a lot of these things for years now. So, I mean, it doesn't shock me that he wrote the piece. It was the New York Times, right? Yeah. So I'm not shocked that he wrote that. And I'm really not shocked at this opinion piece either because at this point, nothing shocks me. I just think...
Well, here's the thing. It's funny because one line actually spoke. It
There-
resonated with me.
There were a couple that did with me. Go ahead.
Well, this one in particular, reading it, I've read this probably 3 or 4 times. This one specifically, and he goes, if given better opportunities, perhaps they could have helped us get to the moon sooner. Or he's talking about the black representation in films for historical pieces that have been overlooked.
He's
he
specifically talking about
specifically
like with NASA. I forget the name of the movie that just
Hidden Figures.
Yeah, Hidden
Hidden
Figures.
Figures.
Kind of specifically that. And again, I don't know her name. I apologize, but the actual NASA actually just named a wing after her just recently. So they have finally acknowledged that she was instrumental in what she did.
Right.
Which I know they would argue, like, well, too little, too late. Yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
and
I'm not
what his
decrying that
argument-
either. But he's just saying, like, if NASA or any company, studio, otherwise, had given them the chance, maybe they could have. And I mean, that's not a false statement.
No, but
either.
it's the key phrase at the end when he says, "If given better opportunities, perhaps they could have helped us get to the moon sooner."
Yeah.
By putting our best minds on the problems, regardless of race.
Yes.
So therefore, in that very sentence in the middle of this article, he completely dismantles what I think his fundamental argument is, and I think that is that. Look, I understand he's pushing for, anti-racism, not just non-racist. And I understand his I at least understand, and I'm grateful he explained what he believes the differences between the two are, and clarified that within his article as far as making it clear to the reader. And I honestly don't have any problem with him going after Tom Hanks, because I think his underlying argument of why he is going after someone who is a Hollywood elite.
It's a good point. Tom Hanks says it's a problem, but what is he actually doing to solve this problem?
Right. And I have no problem with him using his litany of memorable. And here's the thing. I'm not going to sit here and just accuse Tom Hanks of whitewashing his whole career and saying, oh, well, I went and did these because I knew these movies were going to be a success. It's like, no, these were probably movies that he was either approached by or that interested him and that he wanted to tell the story of. You can tell from Spielberg and Hanks both that something like, Saving Private Ryan is a passion project for that time period.
Right.
Now, granted, I don't think that this author of this opinion piece is necessarily knocking any of those films.
No.
Or saying, oh, well, those are bad films inherently. He's just saying, hey, why wasn't there a spotlight on these other instances until recently, and what are you doing about it to make it more known?
Well,
Exactly.
I will say, in regards to Tom Hanks, just now hearing about this Tulsa
That
massacre,
was actually what I was about to bring up.
I never heard of it before. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. But there's a lot of history that I've never heard of. That's one of the cool things about history is there's a ton of it. There's so much that there's no way that any of us, any person, could know all of it. We're all going to hear things for the first time, and it's going to amaze us, and it's going to blow our minds, and it is going to always bring up the question, well, why hasn't something been done about this before? We had during Black History Month, we had a wall at work where people put their black heroes and stuff up there, and I had just recently listened to a podcast where they talked about James Armistead. Nobody knows who that guy is, but he was like the first American spy, like for real. He basically helped win the Revolutionary War against, he's the one who led to the capture of General Cornwallis. So everything you see in the movie The Patriot, all of the things that happen, they were almost intricately put together by a black man who pretended to be a captive of the British Army, and he was an
Patriot is
American.
often mocked for its
whitewashing.
Well, and just its telling of history in general.
Right, but I'm just saying, I had never heard that, and when I heard that on this podcast and looked it up and read about it, it blew my mind, and I agree. How come there's not a movie made about this? But maybe it's because no one else has heard about it, or the right people that have the connections to make a film about it have ever heard about it themselves. So I can't knock him for just now hearing about this in 2020, like the guy points out. But I'm just like,
I think he's throwing slings and arrows for a culture that's trying to say, okay, we're trying to not necessarily pay or ask for forgiveness of our sins in the past, because I think, again, I don't think it's right to also point the finger at people who haven't necessarily committed those acts of sins. Right, I think I think the blindness is in both. It's in Tom Hanks wanting to admit how short-sighted he's been in terms of his career,
Yeah.
but then this guy's wanting to sit here and say, well, it doesn't matter how much you admit you're short-sighted, you're not doing anything about it now, and look at your career and how successful you've been. It's only because you're white.
Well, that's
it's
what
only
was
because of the stories you're
bothering
trying
me
to tell.
and
Yeah.
what like bringing
That's
up
the
the
underlying
whole,
tone I get from the piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was like Sean said, the guy calls Tom Hanks out for not knowing about the Tulsa massacre, but he specifically calls him out because he said for a man who makes historical movies. I'm like, okay, he's an actor who acts in historical movies.
Right.
He's not a historian. Why doesn't
Yeah.
why does an actor who yes, he has done a lot of historical movies, but I guarantee you a lot of the movies he was in, he didn't even know about until he made the movie.
That's right.
It's like I'm sure Saving Private Ryan, he knew
Right.
what happened in World War
Yeah.
in World
Tom
War
Hanks
II.
he's not an astronaut
But
in real life.
yeah.
In
Yeah.
case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
He's not really an astronaut, so
That's
he
what I'm
learned
saying.
about Apollo 13 when Ron Howard probably approached him for
I
the
think
film
it's kind
and said,
of idiotic to say, well, you do all these historical movies, why don't you know about this? It's like because he doesn't know all of human history.
Right.
Nobody
Right. Yeah.
does, and he's an actor.
he's not an encyclopedia.
Right. Well,
or whatever.
and again, and I feel like exactly. I think that is kind of I think it's the short-sighted nature on both the opinion piece, and on Hanks himself. But again, is it not okay for this person to take out that kind of, attack on Hanks, or not even? I don't even think it's really an attack. It's more of a check mark. It's like here we have these Hollywood stars, self-aggrandizing and getting up there on their bully pulpit every single time they accept an award, talking about how we need to be, they're the seeds of change, and how they're always promoting certain causes. And it's like, okay, well, now you come out and you say, well, this is what we need to do better. And this guy's saying, okay, well, you're the very person who has a platform to make that change. When's it going to happen?
yeah.
And I don't think that necessarily is the wrong question to be asking. And I think this is ultimately why we always kind of mock.
That's what I say. That's the same question we always ask every year the Oscars come around.
Yes.
I say, we have to fix this problem. It's like, well,
Yeah.
You're the ones
okay.
with all the money, and you're the ones with the celebrity status. You're the reasons that these are problems to begin with, because you've brought to the forefront these issues of our time. So now what are you going to do with it?
just-
You're the ones with the big
the
publicity.
every year they go ahead.
I was just going to say the majority of people who point out problems are also the ones who have no part in fixing it.
and are also
and
the
that's-
ones,
Or at least
the
don't even
greater cause
offer
of
up.
causing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we got to fix this problem, but we're not going to offer up a
No.
solution. It's like every year
Get off your ass and quit writing opinion pieces and go out and do something.
Exactly. Every year the Oscars say we have a diversity issue. It's like, well, you say you have a diversity issue, but the only people that can fix it are you. And it's funny how the people that are capable
we've-
of
and it's funny
fixing
'cause
problems.
on this very show, we've mocked the essence of what they've done with this diversity code and implementing it. And I'm like, well, for one, Holly woke is supposed to be the wokest of them all.
Yeah.
And yet every year they get downtrodden. And you can sit here and say, well, that's at the base. That's at the – but it's like, no, who are the ones making the movies? Who are the
No.
producers that are fundamentally, putting the money on the line? Now, granted, I will also say this. It's going to take someone like this opinion piece writer and other people who have actual talent to, I think, not only convince Hollywood to put an investment, because I think something like Hidden Figures was well done.
Yeah.
I mean, we enjoyed. I mean, we've reviewed movies like Mudbound, Selma on this show.
12
Yeah.
Years a Slave.
12
was-
Years a
Oh my
Slave.
gosh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fantastic movies from a black perspective.
Fences.
Get Out.
Well, let's
Fences.
let's not just focus on the black. Let's focus on Slumdog Millionaire.
Yes.
Let's focus on all these other movies. Schindler's List.
Well, and
I mean,
again,
come
I
on,
think
you've got
Crazy
like,
Rich Asians was terrific.
exactly. Like, why does it always have to be? It's always about diversity, but that diversity is only amongst.
exclusive towards black people in the black
absolutely.
community.
Yes.
Yeah, and I agree. It's almost as if, again, I think to me the answer lies somewhere in the middle. I have no problem with him calling out someone who is an elite figure like Tom Hanks, who has a tremendous amount of power in Hollywood. But I also have this problem with his perspective of he just again destroys his argument with that very sentence of regardless of race. But yet your entire piece is about race.
Exactly.
It's embedded in him being a white American who does these white American heroism stories. And I'm like, if you can't take the focus off the race, you thereby are, by definition, a racist.
Yeah.
And that's sorry to say, but regardless of what ethnicity you're in, I don't buy into the bull crap that if you're in a majority, then you can't somehow be offended by racism, or that you somehow can't be the target of racism. That's BS. If you look at any kind of signifier or something that any kind of thing about a person that says, "Oh, well, this person only matters because of their race." That, by definition, is racism.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what this guy and he just completely destroys his entire argument.
Well, with that
by
one
relying
sentence,
on that.
The one sentence that you pointed out is exactly like you said. He is busting down his own wall that he's trying to build here. But it goes back to the point that we've tried to make before, where it's like in Hollywood or with anything in life, the one who's the best at it should get the job.
Yes.
And it just shouldn't matter what color, but he's advocating for the color to have to make a difference.
Right.
And it's like, I can't help that Tom Hanks is a fantastic actor, and that he was cast to play these roles of white people.
So is Denzel.
I mean, they're not exactly.
I mean,
but
I'm sorry,
they're not
but
going to get
are they
Denzel
gonna go
to play Abraham Lincoln?
But,
I mean, I'm just
but
saying,
again,
like,
might.
why
well,
isn't
yeah,
he writing
there's
a
gonna be
piece?
a black Superman now?
But why isn't he writing a piece to Denzel Washington? Why isn't he writing a piece?
True.
Because Denzel Washington, for one, has actually funded, I think, black films. He's produced Fences. He's produced and starred in it. He also produced Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. You know, and these are stories that have a black central cast and black storyline.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, it's like, but he's not out there sitting here thinking, well, I'm going to rein in all the praise because of this black-centric story. It's like he lets the work speak for itself.
Yep.
And I have no problem with people funding these initiatives and funding these diverse, you know, I mean, heck, In the Heights just came out, which is a Latino type film that's
Right.
being praised, but nobody's going to see it.
No.
Now, you could sit there and blame the audience, or you can blame the culture and say, well, it's just because they're not diverse enough, or they're too
Right.
white and they don't care about these stories. And I'm like, but it's not my responsibility as an individual to reach out to the culture and say, well, this is where we need to change it. It's your responsibility as the artist to make me change my perspective. And you can sit there, and as long as you have the ability and the freedoms, by the way our society is set up, to put forth your work, whether it's rejected on merit or not, you can't sit here and tell me that it's rejected because of racism. It simply isn't true these days. I'm sorry. I don't buy that argument.
No.
I feel like that is a false narrative that is setting up anybody who disagrees with you or anybody who may not like what you create. You're immediately going to call them a racist because they don't somehow buy into it.
Yeah.
And that to me it's a weak excuse for someone just not liking what you put forward. Now, granted, again, I have no problem with his initial statement of, hey, if you all care so much about these initiatives, because again, Tom Hanks is the one who came out and said, this is a problem. We need more stories like this. We need fictionalized, documents of history.
You should make one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with him
And
holding his feet to the fire.
maybe he will. Maybe in association with other people, he will. And it's again, Tom Hanks. Keith said it perfectly. He's the one who put him. He fell into that trap, and I get that completely. But you gotta give him some credit. He is using his platform to bring an awareness to something. What he does after that is his own issues. That's his own problem.
Well, I think he's responsible for it.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't feel like throwing punches at the guy for actually using his platform to speak out about something is necessarily the right thing to do. I mean, yes, we have freedom of speech. That's fine. And I'm all for people writing. I mean, this is a hit piece in my opinion. But I just feel like give the guy a break. He's doing what he feels like he can do right now. If someone does approach him to help make a film about this or that or whatever, that's when you hold him to the fire. If he says, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I only want to play righteous white people. Like, I hate that line. Because I'm like, the characters that he portrays, other than Forrest Gump, they're not all righteous people. If you've watched Greyhound, the guy's got skeletons in his closet. Saving Private Ryan, even him as the captain, he's not a perfect man.
Right.
And you see his faults in the movie. He makes poor decisions sometimes. I just don't.
I agree.
Don't agree
I
with
think,
the righteous white man
because
thing.
I think he's destroying his own argument because he tries to set up. I think he's trying to hold his feet to the fire with this piece, but more so he's just trying to get under his skin. And I think this is where any kind of tactic that you use to make a significant cultural shift or change, I think you fail when you insist on fear to be that main motivator.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what this person is relying on. And I think that's what the entire critical rate, I mean, he make that one little slight, line in there about, the hyperbolic nature of critical, people talking down critical race theory, and it's not that big a deal. It's like, no, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
To actually explain and say that America was founded on racism and racist tendencies,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no. The institutions of America were not built on that.
No.
It's those very institutions that you're blaming for racism in America that destroyed slavery and that got rid of it. The first in the developed world that got rid of slavery. We were not the only nation that upheld or had slavery at the time we were instituted as a nation.
Nope.
So don't buy into the critical race theory crap.
Well, the
But
very
again,
slaves that were shipped to America were sold by black people
by
in Africa.
by
Yeah.
Africans.
Yeah.
And you get into the weeds of having to actually break down the arguments of this person that, again, you see how fragile the argument really is. If he would have just said, hey, Tom Hanks, you wrote a great piece. I commend you. But you're the one who's in a position of power.
Yep.
You have an authority in Hollywood. You have money. Put your money where your mouth is.
Right.
I have no problem with that
Yep.
at all.
I
But
agree.
don't sit here and criticize the man and the body of work he's created and the stories he has told that are memorable, that are worth telling. Just because his stories that he's already told, were worth telling, you don't sit there and knock him and his body of work and say, well, those are worthless compared to these.
Yep.
No, that's not how you build, I think, a relationship with changing the culture. And also, that's not how you bring about the positive change you're looking for. The best thing you can do is say, hey, okay, we've had a lot of spotlight on these stories, but here's some other stories, just like the Tulsa Massacre, that can be shared, that can be spotlighted, that I think people would be interested in. I think, Sean, what you opened up with, the very story about the guy that you talked about for Black History Month.
Yeah, James Armistead.
James Armistead. I think that's a perfect person to highlight and say, well, where are these stories?
Yep.
Why aren't these being made? Because I guarantee you, when you talk about, acts of heroism, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, brown, or blue. It's like an act of heroism is something that transcends beyond skin color. It is something that we can all, that we all want to embody, that we all want to look up to. And I think when you come at it from that perspective, you have a far better reach and a far better chance of people buying into and saying, all right, yeah, this is a story I want to see. This is a story I actually want to be told. You don't end up alienating an entire group of people because of their skin color.
Right.
That I think is going to end up ultimately causing more division. And it's going to cause exactly the opposite of what this author of this opinion piece
it's
wanted
actually-
to create.
I've been saying this for a while, but to me, all of this stuff is creating racism.
Yeah.
In my opinion, there is so much there's so much riding on this whole diversity push that I don't feel like we're calling out America as being a racist country when I don't feel like it is or ever really has been at its root. I feel like there are racist people, but I don't feel like America was built on that. I feel
No,
like
I
like
agree.
you said, we have done everything to swiftly defeat that in the early years, in the almost like the birth years of America. We have defeated that. It has not existed for decades. The 60s and the 70s with the civil rights, that blew it all out of the water. Nobody's sitting at the back of a bus drinking out of different water fountains anymore. That is all gone to the wayside. So I'm sick and tired of hearing people create these narratives like the police only hurt black people. It's a lie, and that lie creates a rift. It creates a divide because when you tell me, I'm reading this article and it's like, do you want me to put a gun in my mouth because I'm white?
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
that's your argument is I'm white, therefore I am
Right.
guilty of something. And I don't believe that.
It seems like there's
but
this like embedded
you're creating
vengeance.
racism in
Yeah.
you're making me hate this other group of people because you're attacking me for just being me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't change that just as much as a black man can't change the color of his skin to be somebody he's not. Embrace that. That culture has such significance in the shaping of our world, not through slavery. I mean, when we talk about those stories, the Tuskegee Airmen, when we talk about the stories of the, I don't remember what it was, but there's a submarine crew that was all African Americans, and they were heroes in World War II. I can't remember what that one was, but there's plenty of films and there's plenty of stories being told. It's just a matter of, I mean, how many is enough?
Well, and I think that's ultimately the argument of what someone like the narrator, the narrative that this article is pushing and the author of the editorial is pushing, and ultimately what I think we're experiencing in our culture right now is that it seems like that weight on the shoulders of too much is never enough.
No,
and
woke,
at the end of the day,
there's never enough with woke.
Right, and I think that was kind of, again, I think the problem with the article coming from the offset. He's like, hey, no offense, Tom Hanks, love what you do, but what you're doing is not enough. And again, I understand it from the perspective of Tom Hanks is someone who's earned the spotlight. He's earned the awards and the accolades he's got. He's on a platform. He has the ability to speak up on the behalf of those who he feels are undercredited. And I have no problem with him calling him out in that regard.
Right.
But when he comes at it from the perspective of, now I'm going after the person. Now I'm going after who you are. Like you said, when you make it something personal like that, where it is about your skin color or where it is about
He's
the
trying
culture.
to make Tom Hanks feel guilty.
Right. And I don't think you win over and I don't think you win over anybody who is it's not even about winning over white people.
No.
It's about winning over any kind of group of people. When you tribalize the society in such a way that you fit them into these boxes and you start to seek out ways in which either to feel offended or to check off a box of, this doesn't pertain to me, so it must be against me. It's like, no, not necessarily. Just because it doesn't pertain to you doesn't mean that it's against you. And again, the freedoms, the very freedoms that every single human being has now in America is not limiting anybody from getting out there and creating these stories. And I have no problem saying, well, where are the stories at? You're right to say that. You're right to call that out. And I would love to hear more of these stories being told and more things coming to light. That's why I don't have a problem with more people taking a look at historical evidence in which, there are stories that haven't been told. I have no problem with that. But you don't have to come from a perspective of this vitriolic vengeance like you're saying. It's like this embedded vengeance of, well, but you are a white person, and because you've succeeded so long on the backs of all these other people, you don't have any problems. You are the problem itself. I think that's inherently and entirely incorrect and absolutely evil. I think it is evil. I think it's embedded. That is an evil notion that you don't have any control over your circumstances, but therefore you somehow are completely the reason for all of these atrocities and these problems. Again, I didn't live during the civil rights era. I'm a product of those who came from it and after it. And thank God I am. And thank God I've grown up with other people of color who've shown me some of the things they've been through, but don't sit here and say that my life's been a piece of cake either.
No.
You don't know my story. That's the beauty of America, is it's based on the individual. Every individual has the ability and the chance to succeed or fail. But when it comes down to failure, it is based on your motives and your individual responsibility, not anybody else's. The moment you start pointing that finger at any other group of people, I start to have pause in what your argument is.
Yep.
And I immediately start to second guess it and think, okay, no, if you're not looking in the mirror first and starting there, then I don't want to have any business with this discussion, because it's only going to lead to animosity and division. And it's unfortunate that we have overcome so many things in America
To revert back.
and to revert
Yeah.
back.
Mhm.
It's literally as if the civil rights movement being fought for
Yep.
is being peeled back and rolled back in such a passionate and vitriolic
Well,
way.
it's like you said, we didn't grow up in that era, but we can see that what happened in that era is being undone.
Yeah.
Like piece by piece.
Yeah.
It's like you're
Well, the racial tension now between just when we grew up, like you said, we grew up after that era.
yeah.
But when you look at the era we grew up in all the way up until now, there definitely was not the same level of racial tension as
No.
there is now, because that was created. That was something that
Yes.
was recently,
Planted.
like I think, really created and pitted like people against each other.
Yeah.
That wasn't there previously, and people could say, "Oh no, it's systemic and always been there," but it wasn't. It really was not.
And again,
What-
I agree. I think
Yeah.
that's where I would say it's a poor excuse for what we're creating is systemic.
Yeah.
We're creating systemic problems now by trying to teach our culture and our society that these are things that we can't
And I mean, I'm
overcome.
not saying historically there aren't racist events that happened in the past. There were. I mean, yes, slavery existed. We went through a whole civil war over it.
Well, and there
um,
was systematic racism in terms of Jim Crow.
Yes, yeah,
But that's
but
gone.
Those were
Yeah.
also abolished, and as I say, it's yes, there were horrific events that happened, but there were also good people that recognized those horrors and said we have to put it into this, and they did put it into it. And now it's just kind of like people have to keep bringing things back up because it's never good enough. It's like, yeah, you fought and ended it, but there's still this thing going on. And it's like, no, now you're picking out like Sean said, personal racism events as opposed to systemic
Well, they can't
racial
they
events.
can't find proof of the systemic, so they go after people personally.
Well, it's
and
an
you
abstract.
can't cure personal. Here's the thing:
It's an abstract.
there's evil people out there. There's people who
Yes.
kill. There's people that rape. There's people that are racist.
But the moment, but the
and
problem
you
is,
can't stop the individual from being wrong or evil.
True, and the problem when you point the finger at systemic problems, it's then the only way to solve it is either tear the whole thing down,
Well, that's what they're trying to
and
do.
that's the
Right.
ultimate message,
Right.
or it's how do we resolve these issues? And it's like, well, they don't want to work within that system.
Yeah.
These people who want to destroy it want to destroy the very fundamental beliefs in the founding fathers' vision of what this country was, and ultimately that all men are created equal. And it's like, now that our laws represent that and we have time and wounds to heal, absolutely, we may forever have that. But to say that somehow we haven't grown as a nation or grown as a society and ultimately as a world, I think a huge influence on the world and the way the world has ushered through these issues and conflicts. It's like we fought world wars on genocide, and the fact that people killing entire groups of people is wrong, and yet now we're trying to invite it into our very livelihoods.
Yeah.
How dare we? Why would we revert back to that? Why would we go back to that type of Neanderthal thinking and that type of that type of mindset that is just so beneath actual human common sense? It's sickening, and it is evil. And I'm sorry, but anybody who wants to try to get a little bit ahead in today's world by promoting these issues and not fighting against them instead to make the world a better place, I think hopefully there will be a reckoning for them and someday. And it may not be in my lifetime, but it'll be in the life after next. Alrighty, guys. Whew. Sorry, heavy-handed discussion tonight on tonight's podcast. Had to break it.
Yeah.
It was just a story that was populating, that was going around all over the interwebs.
It ate at you, didn't it?
It did. Well, and I had to speak on it. Everybody was talking about Tom Hanks. Had to throw our 2 cents in there.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, guys. I think we're ready to move on to our unique weekly segment. Let's roll that big, beautiful open.
It's story time, where the podcast members tell their stories.
Story time. And just before we get into story time, just want to let everybody know, hey, reach out to us. Let us know on social what you think of all of our topics, everything we discuss. Send us a comment, send us an email.
Yeah.
RMPodcast@redmoonproductions.com. But right there at the bottom of your screen, all of the social links. You can find us everywhere on the interwebs. Let us know what you think. Tell us your 2 cents.
Well, I think it got overshadowed big time by that article, but I would also like to mention that about the death of Ned Beatty.
Yes, Louisville native.
He was a Louisville-born actor, very good actor.
Was
Everything
a
I've
good
seen
man.
him in, he was good. Wasn't he the dad in Rudy? Wasn't he Rudy's dad?
I think he was actually.
Yeah.
And
We gotta look
I don't
that
know
up.
why, but I mean,
that was the
obviously-
role I
obviously
remember him from.
Deliverance.
Yes.
He was huge in Deliverance.
He is the dad in Rudy.
Oh,
He's
he's
so
he's very
he's few and far between in films, but when he's in them, he's great. I mean, even Lex Luthor's sidekick in Superman,
Yep.
with Christopher Reeves, like a very good actor. We're sorry to hear about his passing.
Well, it's funny because I'm glad you brought up the dad and Rudy, because that was the
I think
I
that's
don't
him.
that is him.
I'm pretty sure.
And it's weird because I just remember his
it's him.
face.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but that was the one role that stuck out for me, and I kept seeing
Oh,
pictures
he's
of
been
him
in
the
all
films.
kinds of stuff, but
Yeah.
like Sean said, he's
Yeah.
never. That he has been very interesting in that, like when he's in something, he's always good, but he's not a Tom Hanks where he's
No.
just a
Right.
household. Like you see him in all kinds of stuff.
But he's a known actor.
Like, and people
Yeah.
do know. Like he's
people
not.
recognize his face.
People
and-
know him.
yeah.
He's definitely famous. He's
Yeah,
just not.
probably from Deliverance.
He's just yeah.
By
That's
far, probably his biggest.
one of the
film,
biggest
But
ones.
yeah.
And Network was the one he was nominated
Oh
for.
yeah.
But
Oh, I
Absolutely
forgot. I'm
worth
pretty
remembering.
sure I'm gonna pull this up just to make sure I'm not wrong. But I'm pretty sure he also did the voice for the bear in Toy Story 3. The
yes, he
the
did.
villain.
Oh, yeah,
Lotso
yeah,
Hugging
yeah.
Bear.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
He was also that.
Yep.
Yeah, and even that was good, like vocal work. Like not all actors
yeah.
are capable of
Yeah.
doing
Doing both.
Yeah,
Plays a
and
good villain.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the main bad guy in Shooter with Mark Wahlberg and
Rango.
Danny Glover. Was he in Rango?
Yeah, he did a voice in Rango.
Yeah.
Looking
It
up,
was-
looking
There
up
we
his
go.
entire.
I looked up his whole
filmography.
thing.
I didn't want to like take away from the storytime segment, but I did
He was the
want
mayor.
to get in to his
Yeah,
passing.
no,
just 'cause
we should have
kinda-
mentioned him right off the top
Yeah.
because usually we do with
When J
I mean,
Law, if something ever happens to her, we're not going to mention
no,
her.
Yeah.
no, no,
But
no, no.
Ned
We
Beatty,
won't.
yeah.
It will not be a headline. In fact, I was gonna sit here and say it's a sad loss because it's actually a Louisville native that I care about.
Yeah.
You know.
Indeed.
Alrighty, guys. Our story time segment tonight is about your first real confrontation.
Mm.
Who wants to go first? Throw it out there.
I'm non-confrontational, so I got to
You
think.
never
on
threw
it.
down. You never had fisticuffs with anybody.
Oh no, I've never been in a physical fight with anybody.
Really?
Yeah, I
Wow.
don't fight people.
Wow.
I'm not.
Keith-
I don't
Keith-
fight.
Like not
That's-
even when you
that's
were
a
a kid,
lie.
you didn't get into it over
That's a
GI
lie.
Joe or something.
I never got into like a fist fight that I
I saw
mean,
you body slam a dude once, and you tore him up in the mall. It was crazy. I'm lying. I'm
Yeah.
just.
I was like, when was this?
Yeah. Never
He's
got
like,
into,
I never
physical fights.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it doesn't have to be physical. Maybe
It
can
doesn't.
be verbal.
Yeah.
Was there any bad verbal ones?
Probably. I don't really remember fights anyways.
He's
I
just
just
gonna.
don't.
He's just bowing out of this
I
one.
don't.
Rashad
I don't know. I
Harris.
have to think. I just don't.
I'm just
not
kidding.
a,
It wasn't Rashad Harris.
not a
That-
particularly. I mean, I've had arguments with people, but I mean, when was the first argument I ever had with somebody? I don't know.
Yep.
Probably with
Well.
you when we were little.
I can tell you right now that definitely happened.
I think when I brought up the real confrontation, I was thinking more of like, yeah, we have confrontations over arguments over.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, who's gonna play this in our homemade?
Oh no,
game?
Yes.
me and
Where
Brandon
I'm
have had
talking
arguments
about, like,
before.
an ar-
yeah,
like
no,
a-
no,
like,
oh,
I'm,
yeah. We
I'm not
definitely
your
have.
friend anymore. I'm never gonna see you again. Like any, I mean, that's a verbal one. I've had.
I mean, we've never
two-
had gone that far.
I've had two physical fights.
No.
in my
We,
life.
we,
That
we've
was it,
definitely
though.
had some good arguments, but
There
we've
was
never,
one back
like,
in college that Keith and I shared that was pretty, I think, pretty heated. That was the last one I remember. That was like a real big blow up. I don't know if you remember it. I
the
do.
only one I can think of is it was with 26 years, but
Was it 20? Mine. I'm thinking of ITCO.
maybe yeah. Well,
We
there
were
was one
doing
there too.
Is the camera on?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was like I blew up because I thought I was being the butt of every joke, and I blew up. It was one day when we were sitting in my room. It was me, you, and Logan. I think
Is
Neil
that what
was
you were
there
upset
actually.
about?
I
thought
but to get
Yeah.
into it
Is that
again.
it?
I thought I was fidgeting with something. And you didn't think I was paying attention to you. And then you
Oh
got mad.
no, I did. I
Yeah.
said, "Why don't you put the laptop down?" And then you were like, "I'm paying attention. Why do I have to put it down?"
Yeah.
And you thought I was being dictator, which I kind
Yeah.
of was.
Yeah.
Neil was there. I remember that because I
Yeah.
remember he stepped out of the room like,
It's-
"This is
It's
awkward."
supposed to be director, not
Yeah.
dictator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've officially
Similar spelling.
Yeah.
But
got the name dictator.
I
for
mean, we've
the
had
26
arguments, but I mean, I've
years.
never thought any of our arguments were like.
No,
It's
no, no, no.
life.
Well, I mean, no.
I mean, you know,
it was
yeah.
it was
Yeah.
a brotherly
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
It was definitely like we got our
I've had worse
we got our
arguments with
anger
other
out.
people.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then afterward, it was like we brushed it
There was
off.
there
and
was
we were
never
fine.
there was never a point where like even that night we were fine. Like there's never been a point where I think we like longer
I
than
think-
maybe a half hour or an hour afterwards.
Well,
we
I was
might
gonna
get a
say, I
little
think
bit,
if
that's
we've
love.
had an argument or a fight, it's like we're gonna have it knowing that there's never.
well, I mean,
there's
at this
never a-
point, we've known each other for
Yeah.
31
31
years almost. Not, I mean,
I was gonna say there's not a fight where we think if we're gonna have it out, it's gonna end the friendship. Like it's kind of like an old married couple. I mean, we
that's
get
the thing,
compared to that all the
we're
time, but
probably
it's
more.
true.
When we finally do get married, we're probably more likely to fight and divorce our wives than to fight and never see each other
No,
again.
Yeah.
it sounded like.
I mean,
it
it-
was just funny because it was
Not
like, it sounded
us,
like,
not-
yeah.
yeah.
When we finally
When
do
we-
get
when
married,
we
When
finally
we get married, yeah,
When we just relent because no one else will have us.
yeah, we just have wives to just say, hey, at least we're
that
not
was
gay.
actually
yeah.
back when Family Guy was still funny. That was always one of my favorite quotes when Stewie said, "Brian, why can't men just do what they do with women, but with men? You know, because it's easier." He said, "You can. It's called being gay." but then
Can't say
Well,
that,
you
no.
can't-
Family
that's
Guy
not
got
a-
woke.
yeah.
It got woke,
Yeah.
and it's not funny
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, mine was definitely it was in middle school. I name dropped a Rashad Harris. Harris is actually not the right last name. His name was Rashad, but I forgot I worked with a Rashad Harris in college. It was not him.
not him.
Not him, no.
Not him.
So ixnay on that, but it was I forget the
I hear
kid's
Rashad,
last
and I
name.
keep thinking Rashida Jones.
No,
No.
Definitely not. If it was
Well, he
Rashida
is now.
Jones.
Mm.
Yeah.
he became
Well, he got hot.
But no, Rashad actually, it was like, I don't know, it was literally the stupidest thing ever. But I made a big deal out of it. And I was in 6th grade trying to, I guess, I made some stupid comment about Britney Spears not being good and being stupid and terrible, which is funny because I was a closeted Britney Spears fan, but I couldn't let anybody know that in 6th grade.
He loved Britney
Yeah.
Spears
Yeah.
and the Backstreet Boys.
Exactly. I was a big pop fan.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He
Don't get
wasn't-
me started. I
he
had
wasn't-
Millennium and I had Hit Me
He
Baby
wasn't
One More Time.
closeted around me.
Nope. Well,
That
again,
sounds good.
I've always been open with you. But no, I said something in class.
Your parents probably.
And-
I just imagine us upstairs. I'm just thinking upstairs in your bedroom listening to Britney Spears and Backstreet
Yeah.
Boys.
They're
Your
like,
parents were
boy,
probably like they're
They
going
better
to
not
hell.
shut
See,
that door.
look,
They better
I'm
not
telling
shut that
you,
door.
that was back in the day where you could get away with that and you weren't gay.
Yeah.
You didn't have to be gay.
I'm
if
just
you listened
I'm thinking of Don't Mess with the Zohan when his dad says, "You keep digging that finger a hole deeper and deeper." That's I guess that's Israeli for
you-
I mean, your sister
homosexual.
did walk in. On, your sister did walk in on us eating chicken from Dairy Queen, watching fried green tomatoes.
That was
so-
probably that was one of the gayest moments.
She's like,
They definitely. She was
She's
just
like,
like,
what are y'all watching?
Yeah.
Fried green tomatoes. And she just looked at us.
Walked
and
just
away
walked
slowly.
out. She just walked out.
At least it wasn't The Notebook.
It's a good movie. Fried Green
True.
Tomato, The Notebook, not.
No, Fried
but
Green Tomatoes is a good movie.
That's a good movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I mean, and as film lovers, she should have understood.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. There's
I mean,
nothing
we
wrong with
also watched Pulp Fiction in that room, so I mean, you know,
There was-
Fried Green
there was
Tomato,
a
Pulp
lot
Fiction,
of-
Kill
Yeah.
Bill. I mean,
There was a lot of things we watched in that
Brokeback
room.
Mountain.
never that one. Never
Remember
that
that
one.
But it's funny because I'm like, yeah, nowadays you would, if that was what it would be like, oh no, now your parents are gonna coax you into being gay.
Yeah.
Oh, he likes Britney Spears with his best friend. He's gay. We gotta make him gay.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's the
And
answer
now we know
nowadays.
Brandon's first real confrontation.
With my parents.
They wouldn't let him be gay.
I had shock treatment, and
Yep.
Have you seen Clockwork Orange?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. No, but
In your room.
I will say Rashad was this. I think he was. I actually do think he was gay. I really
Okay.
do think he was gay. He was a little black boy. He was gay.
Rashad.
Rashad.
Oh.
Rashad.
Rashad.
Ray.
Okay.
But I think I said something. He was offended by my disliking of Britney Spears. Well, I took it up a notch, and I was like, "Oh, so what? She sucks." And like I had to ratchet it up, and he took real offense to it. And for like about 3 or 4 days, he would always find me as I was walking to the bus, and he would like try to hit me in the face.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
he was serious.
Okay, I do have a story now, but you can finish.
But
yours.
I'm just saying, I'm sitting here and I'm just
Yeah.
like, dude, like, come on, man. It's like, I told a teacher, I actually did tell a teacher about it. It was like the 3rd day, and I was like, Rashad keeps following me to the bus and like trying to hit me. And I remember the teacher just saying, "Oh, okay, well, let us know if something happens."
You let us know if he does.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I seriously, like, I really do, like, I laugh at some teachers
That's
who just,
stupid.
they didn't do
You
nothing.
come in the next day and you're like, Rashad.
It's like,
hit
Yeah,
me.
there's
Rashad hit
there's
me, he hit
there's
me.
a zero bullying policy.
Oh yeah.
But you have to get
I
a
have
black
a
eye
feeling
before you know.
If I remembered the teacher that I told,
Mm.
and that, I could probably get her pension revoked by now. I mean, with the amount of anti-bullying there is in
Right.
schools these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
But no, it ended up fizzling out. Nothing ever really came about it. Rashad and I made up later on, and I didn't really admit to liking Britney Spears. I think he somehow knew
Mhm.
deep down that I just, oops, I did it again,
Mm.
and I loved it. So
Wow.
yeah, Rashad and I we're cool. We
Okay.
made up
Yeah.
after that, and weren't really good friends, but no more confrontation.
It was not a reciprocated confrontation, but I mean, when I was in elementary school, my uncle was dating a woman who had like 3 kids, and one of the
Holy shit! I was
yeah.
like, "Where's this about to go into?"
yeah.
Did you get
yeah.
molested?
This
Oh
is getting
shoot!
crazy. No, her oldest son was my age. Like we went to the same elementary school. We weren't in the same class, but he was a bit of a bully,
Yep.
and
Yep.
he was a messed up kid. I mean, he was a dick, but he was a messed up kid. like,
Most of them are.
like for real. Like, I love South Park now, but he knew what South Park was in like 4th grade. He listened to Eminem, like all
Ooh.
kinds of
ICP.
like when I think like And here's the thing: it's like, like some people are like, well, so what? It's like, yeah, but he was definitely way too young for that stuff, and he really took like okay, think of like some of like Eminem's early.
Well, you're about to explain why it's not a good thing for a fourth grader.
Well,
to
yeah,
be
think about
listening
it.
to
Like,
that.
in elementary school, these were like some of Eminem's first ever albums when he's singing about killing his ex and like shoving people in trunks and and he
Marshall
thought
Mathers LP.
yeah, and he thought that stuff was hilarious.
I'm cleaning out my
Which is-
closet.
Yeah, he thought that was hilarious. And so he used to try to always like hit me or push me down. And I mean, I just avoided him and they eventually broke up. But like, yeah, there were times when like, and I mean, it's kind of sad now.
Is he
knowing
dead?
that- no, I don't know what's gone on with him. Maybe. I just, there were things where like, I knew if he was somewhere, like I would, like if my grandparents, like he would stay at my uncle's, like when we weren't in school,
You would avoid
by
him and-
himself.
yeah.
And my grandparents used to watch us, but like my uncle lived like 2 streets over. So if he knew I was going to my grandparents, he would want to come over and hang out. So I got to a point sometimes where I'd be like, oh, I don't want to go to like my because like I was old enough, my parents would let me stay at home with Miranda or whatever. But I used to enjoy going to my grandparents.
course.
So I'd go over there. And there was a time where I'd be like, no, I just want to stay home because. But
He
then,
was over
but
there.
then he'd call and want to know if he could like stay at our house, and I'd just be like, well, I'm going over there anyways, because I mean.
So really,
Yeah.
even though he was a dick, you could have been the force of change that he really wanted in his life, and he thought you were a real friend, and you were like, no, you're a dick, and you keep pushing me around. I don't want to be friends with you. And he probably now is suffering because of that. He didn't have a good influence in his
all your
life.
fault.
Good. I hope he is.
There you go.
Sean, what about you?
The first, I would say like maybe physical altercation was when I was like in elementary school. The people that lived next to us, there was a Korean family that lived there next to where my dad lives. So there was an old guy living there. His daughter and grandson lived there, and the grandson would always want to play, but he was like that. He was kind of like Keith was describing. He wanted to play, but he always wanted to like push me around. And
No, he didn't want to play. Like he literally was like trying to kick my ass.
well, that's what I'm saying. But the
Yeah.
kid would come. He would want to come over, and then when he came over into our yard, he was always confrontational and always
Yeah.
like being like mean. And I
Kind of
remember,
like Patrick
I remember one day he
had
like
a side of him like that.
Yeah, but Patrick didn't try to like punch me or
True,
drive his head
true.
into my back.
True. He just got a little rough.
So-
He roughhoused.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. It's one day he came over with a dog leash and like a cloth leash with the hook on the end of it, you know, like
Oh
the
my
latch.
Yeah.
gosh.
And he was talking to me about how he knew all this karate and stuff, and I was like, I don't think you really know it.
I think they
Well, he showed
always
me
know
that he know it.
karate because he told me.
And, Yeah, so he kicked my ass in the backyard and hit me with the dog leash a couple of times. Well, so that kind of went on for a summer. Like he would come over and want to hang out. We'd play fine for 10, 15 minutes, and the next thing you know, he was just like, if he didn't like the way things were going,
Yeah.
or didn't like something I said,
He'd get
or
pissed.
whatever, he would just that's just how he did. Well,
Well, you had
one day I hit him with a brick.
nice.
That's the way to do it.
And,
That's
I really
the way
wish.
to do it.
I really
And
wish I'd hit my bully with a
He
brick.
went back over. He went back over the fence and never came back.
Good.
But and his family hated us after that.
Yeah,
In
you know.
fact, like their 2 collies like jumped over the fence and mauled my mother while she was like
What?
in the garden in the backyard, and the family just didn't do anything. Like they didn't come
would've
over. They
sued
didn't
their-
try to.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. My mom has like scars on her arm from these dogs getting her. But
I think he was gay.
the first
That's why he brought the leash.
maybe I don't know.
Just
It's really
saying.
funny.
You gotta
'cause
look into that.
He
stuff.
Bring out
looked
the
exactly. I'm not lying. He looked exactly like that drug lord kid in Tropic Thunder. That's exactly what he looked like.
So
Like every time I
amazing.
see that movie, I think of that kid. And I can't think of his name.
Simple Jack.
Yeah, Simple Jack. But
Wow.
then, no, in high school was the only other time that I actually fought with somebody.
Yeah.
And it was one of those instances where it was like I wasn't gonna take it no more. I was a freshman.
Yep.
The kid was on the football team. He was way bigger than me. And on the way from the main school to the tech building, one day he kept like he would do that flat tire thing on the back of my heel. My
Yep.
shoe would come off. I'd fall down. There's 100 kids walking I'd bump into 12 kids, fall down, and everybody would laugh. Well, he did it one
too many
more
times.
time.
One too many times.
And that time, my shoe didn't come off, and I spun around, and I just got him right
Railed him.
in the face, and he hit me way harder back than I hit him. But I did not fall down. I just stood there, about with tears in my eyes, just about. And after that one hit, it was like I turned around and started walking to the tech building. He went the same direction. We were actually in shop class together, and like literally, I'm sitting there working on the lathe, trying to make my knife handle, or no, it was a file.
He's about to shank him.
We were making
He's
a
about
file.
to
No.
shank 'em.
We were making like a file, and I had to, make the handle.
Yeah.
And he came over, and he was just like, I can't get mine set up right or whatever. And seriously. And I'm sitting there with my mouth swollen.
Yep.
And so I went over to the lathe that he was on, and I was like, you got to do this. You got to turn.
So that's all you need sometimes.
And so we sat there
That's-
and did
that's
that.
guy.
That's a
love
total
right there.
guy thing right
Yeah,
there.
it
and
is.
Yeah.
And after that,
It's like respect.
after that, we went to the next class, which was agriculture, and he came over and sat by me, and he was like, you hit pretty hard. and I was like, well, yeah, I was like swollen. I'm just like, you hit harder or whatever. And we laughed about it. And after that, he was my friend.
Yeah.
And every person on the football team was my friend. I got invited to all the crap that they were
Holy
going to.
see?
So it ended up being, and then later on, like
This
two,
is an
2
80s
years later,
movie right here.
2 years later, when I was a junior, I got into another thing in the gym with somebody that just kept picking with me.
They
and
backed you
and
up?
Guess who came up behind me, and that person never messed with me again either.
That's right.
So it was just, I think sometimes you have those altercations for a reason.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, and I think that's the problem with the anti-bullying culture. I think there is, especially with social media and the cowards there are today. No doubt, it reaches levels that I think are well beyond what some kids can take or should be able to handle.
Yeah.
But I think back in the day, what we're kind of talking about the schoolyard antics. It's like you have those moments in those confrontations because sometimes the people are sizing you up.
Yeah.
And it's like if you can't defend yourself in high school, how do you expect to defend yourself in the real world?
Right.
When you've got other people who don't give a damn who you are,
Yeah.
they don't know you from Adam, and they'll try to take everything you own.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You got to defend yourself. I mean, you gotta puff up your chest and let the world, show
I
the
think
world
the
who you are.
only time I tried to actually attack somebody was Chase when he stuck his bare butt on my face while I was sleeping, and I woke up and chased him.
I think Chase has been like almost attacked by everybody.
Yeah, well, he never did it again.
Chase.
I think because and I think that's the first time Neil saw me angry because it was at church camp. Because like Neil's always because
Everybody's ass comes
It's
out at
always
church
a
camp.
church camp.
But like Neil's always said ever since then, he's like, yeah, I don't ever want to make Keith angry because I've seen it and it's scary. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, he just made me mad, and I was bound. He's lucky that he's so small and fast because I couldn't get him. But I mean, I did have him cornered for a minute, but.
He was
I
like
just
deer in the
I remember the
headlights.
look in Chase's face.
It
He
was
was
fear.
he was
Yeah.
terrified.
Complete
so
and total
Good.
fear.
Good.
because I was like,
That's
I
the way
was
it should be.
I was like, I was gonna grab him, and I was like, quit, because it wasn't the first time he did it. The first two times I was like, funny. But then when he did it again, I was like, okay, I've had enough of you putting your
Yep.
bare butt on my face while I'm asleep.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
You got to let them know enough's enough.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, guys, right there at the bottom of our screen, right there, Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Pics, Red Moon Productions on YouTube. Search for it. Like, share, subscribe. All the social medias at the bottom of the screen. Got to love it. And, of course, yes, the old, tried, true, traditional email. RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Yeah.
Right there at the bottom of your screen. We want to thank everybody for watching. Email us
been a
what
long
you think.
One. Been a long one
Thanks.
tonight.
Yeah,
but
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
We've
tuning in.
Ran almost a full hour and a half.
I
Here.
know. We're getting a little longer, but look, I think
Yeah.
you got to stay on to get those likes and the
Yeah.
shares and the subscribes, and hopefully people are entertained. If you're not, tell us.
Yeah.
Write us right there at the bottom of your screen.
Aw.
We hear somebody down there being testy.
Not entertained!
We hope we have entertained.
Oh yeah.
Oh, she's
She's
definitely
ready.
She wants to play.
she's ready. She's ready. She's done rested. She's
I'm
ready to go.
I gotta go poo.
Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham. It's over. We're done.
that's it.
Hang it up.
We hope hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.